Can you tell us what the 5 S's are?
Yes. So the first is swaddling, most important. Most babies calm with just swaddling. The next is shushing. Shh.
Yes.
It sounds rude, or you think you're being rude, but it's not. It's louder than a vacuum cleaner in the uterus. So they are used to that sound, and everyone's like, shh, baby's sleeping, and they tiptoe. But actually, like, they hear your intestines, they hear what's happening all the time. So the shushing is really helpful for them, and it's like rhythmic and soothing. The next one is sucking, like a pacifier. I'm probably doing these out of order. Don't judge me, people. But sucking the pacifier, which is Lola's favorite, and I now have to struggle with figuring out how to take it away at age 2. And then the other one is going to be the stomach or side position. This one's not for sleep. This is for calming their crying.
Right.
So like, you have them on their side or even all the way flipped over, like in that football hold.
Right.
Because they've got to calm down first.
Right.
And then side stomach was last. Swaddling, sucking, shushing, side stomach. Oh, swinging. Duh. Yeah. Motion. And an easy way to do that when you're holding a baby is that windshield wiper. So use your legs. Yeah, swinging. Or like, the mom sway. You're like at a game or a concert and you're still doing it, right? Like, yeah.
Oh, definitely the sway is the way to go.
Yeah, so that's swinging motion, and 3 of those are in SNU.
How did your dad figure this out?
He didn't. That's the funny thing. He says all the time, like, I didn't invent this. Like, people in Africa were swaddling. I don't know why Americans stopped, but at the time, as I mentioned at the first book that came out in like 2001, nobody swaddled.
Right.
But when he was figuring out, we had this thing called shaken baby syndrome in the U.S. where
yes.
a little bit, and unfortunately it creates brain damage, the trauma from the brain hitting their little skull inside, and they often get injuries or even pass away. And so he was researching, like, why do we have that and other cultures don't, which is crazy. This must have been like, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. I'm not sure of the timeline exactly. And in his research, he saw that the biggest difference was our babies cried more. And so there was a tribe in the Kalahari Desert called the Kungsi, I think. I don't pronounce it probably well, but they would literally wrap the baby, like swaddle it, and then like wear the baby, and they would go do everything. Cook, walk around, gather food, take care of the toddlers, everything. And the baby was worn 24/7. And that tight swaddling was really helpful. And many cultures all over, Asia and so many places were still swaddling, and we just weren't in America. So he kind of like saw all the differences. And then really there's evolutionary theory behind it, which is why kind of the Merriam-Webster dictionary a couple of years ago, just recently cited him for popularizing the term the 4th trimester. And that's because in that first book, they talked about how so many other animals are in gestation a year, 2 years, right? Like a baby horse is born and it can like run and do all these things, and our babies can't do anything. And so his theory was that this is actually really cruel. The baby's head is 11 centimeters on average, and we dilate to 10.
Right.
So like, if evolution couldn't give us an extra centimeter here, like it's really an unnecessary cruelty. But so the idea was that when the heads were too big, or when the baby was, too big, that the mothers or babies or both would die. And so through evolution, the way that it kind of worked out was that the babies in the families who kind of survived would be 9 months in utero. And so really like our babies could use some extra baking, but like the canal, the cervix, like, I don't know, our stuff can't get it together. And so our babies are really born too soon. And so he calls that 4th trimester, those first 3 months of life, where you simulate the uterus. And so that's where he combined all the things he just saw, which is like the white noise, the swaddling, the motion of wearing the baby all the time, the swinging, the sucking, right? That's a natural reflex. Babies are born with so many reflexes that kind of atrophy or disappear over time. And so he's really saying, hey, there's a calming reflex, and I can turn it on if you do these steps. And it happens like almost immediately for almost all babies. It's pretty universal. And for the people out there, with real earnestness, like not condescension, but so many people like to say, my baby hates to be swaddled. But what we saw in like testing and in research, I think out of Colorado, was that most people whose baby didn't like to be swaddled weren't doing it right.
Oops.
Because it's like a little bit scary. You're like, it's like a little delicate baby. And then you have to do it really tight, because the tighter you do it, the more it actually soothes them. If you do it not tight enough, but they're like constrained, but they can kind of get out and break out. Yeah, they're pissed at you. They're like, what are you doing?
Right.
But if you get it all the way tight enough, then you're starting to stimulate that calming reflex. So kind of his theory is it's evolution, and that our babies just need a little more time in the womb. And so there's really the need for that fourth trimester, if you will.
Totally makes sense.
To me, it does.
Absolutely.